It's not uncommon for families to experience disagreements or face financial struggles. Yet, some families manage to maintain unity and navigate through everyday life without breaking apart. I don't think it's essential to determine which type of family is happier. My name is Claire. Since my early days, people have labeled me as an unusual child. I'm not sure what makes me strange. Perhaps it's just because others say so. Being called odd isn't really an issue for me, but it becomes problematic when it causes my parents to shun me. Growing up, I felt isolated. From a young age, I possessed an acute awareness of others' thoughts and feelings, though I couldn't explain how. This ability felt as natural to me as moving one's hands or breathing does to most people. Once, a sense of malice emanated from one of my father's colleagues who visited our home. Sensing danger, I advised my mother to be cautious, but she dismissed my warnings. Later, this colleague attempted to involve my father in a risky contract, but remembering my caution, my father opted out. This decision saved us from financial ruin when the colleague later went bankrupt. Another incident occurred while I was out with my mother. I sensed danger from a man nearby and instinctively pulled her away to safety. Moments later, we learned he had committed a theft right where we had been standing. My ability to sense these dangers only alienated me further from my family. They regarded my peculiarities with suspicion and distanced themselves from me, leaving me to feel profoundly lonely. What felt normal to me was bizarre to others. I learned to suppress my insights, pretending nothing was wrong to blend in and avoid being labeled as strange. My sister Quinn, who is 5 years younger, grew up under a different light. Cherished and adored by our parents, she embodied the typical, cheerful child, in stark contrast to my darker, more mysterious persona. As years passed, Quinn enjoyed our parents' affection, while I was left in the shadows, treated as an oddity even though I no longer shared my unusual perceptions. Quinn began to adopt our parents' attitudes, treating me with disdain and claiming that being around me tarnished her image. My parents did little to discourage her behavior, further deepening the rift between us. As I grew older, I worked hard to control and hide my unique abilities, not out of shame, but to protect myself from further pain and isolation. Despite the challenges, I've come to terms with my identity. I realize now that my experiences, although painful, have shaped who I am. I am learning to navigate life with a quiet strength, holding on to who I am, while still trying to find a place where I can belong without needing to hide my true self. I remember when a data scout from a local entertainment production company spotted my younger sister. She was still in elementary school, but they saw potential in her and invited her to join their agency. Proudly, she told me, "It's clear why they picked me. I'm meant to be on TV." Our parents were thrilled, envisioning a glamorous future for her. Despite the excitement, I felt uneasy about it. After years of suppressing my strange ability to sense danger, I broke my silence, cautioning her to reconsider. However, my sister misunderstood my intentions, accusing me of being jealous because I wasn't as outgoing or traditionally attractive as her. She snapped, "Don't be weird and stop blocking my path." Our parents sided with her, either dismissing or having forgotten about my unusual sensitivity. Later, during my time in junior high, an incident reinforced my decision to remain silent about my abilities. A college student doing an internship at our school, aspiring to be a senior fitness instructor, gave an inspiring talk and quickly became popular, especially among the female students. Yet, as I observed him, a chilling sense of dread washed over me. Despite my rule to keep my abilities hidden, the potential danger to my classmates compelled me to act. I approached a teacher, someone who seemed approachable and understanding, and urged him to monitor a specific area after school without revealing the full extent of my concerns. Surprisingly, he agreed. He didn't ask for details, perhaps out of a simple trust rather than naivety. The next day, chaos unfolded when it was discovered that the intern had violated privacy laws. He had attempted to set up a hidden camera in the women's restroom, but thanks to the teacher's timely intervention, a crisis was averted, protecting the female students from becoming victims of an invasion of privacy. Meanwhile, my sister's journey into the entertainment industry took a sour turn. She joined the agency with enthusiasm, but soon it became clear that it was a scam. There were no real lessons or auditions. Instead, she was asked to pay exorbitant fees. Eventually, the agency abruptly closed down, leaving her devastated and financially exploited. In her frustration and despair, she lashed out at me, blaming me for her misfortune, claiming I had ruined her future. Her accusations were unfounded, yet she clung to them, perhaps as her way of coping with the disappointment. This whole ordeal only deepened the rift between us. She believed her accusations against me, needing someone to blame to make sense of her pain. It was heartbreaking, yet another reminder of how misunderstood I was within my own family. Growing up tagged as the odd one had always isolated me from others, and this was no exception with my own family. They saw me drift further away, as I unintentionally moved into the shadows of my younger sister's more vibrant presence. Despite feeling a sense of accomplishment for helping prevent a crisis at school, I was anxious about being further stigmatized. The day after the incident, the teacher who had acted on my advice called me into the staff room. I entered, bracing myself for another round of judgment, but instead, I was met with understanding. "You knew something was going to happen, didn't you?" he asked quietly. There was no point in pretending, so I confessed about my unusual ability. To my surprise, the teacher revealed that he was familiar with such abilities because his aunt possessed similar powers. He empathized with my situation and arranged for me to meet her. Her name was Natalia. When I met her, her eyes, kind yet piercing, immediately made me feel seen. She shared her own struggles with her abilities, having lived a life of concealment and inner turmoil. This conversation was a turning point for me. It alleviated many of my fears and doubts. Natalia became more than just a mentor to me. She was a beacon of understanding in a world where I had felt perpetually misunderstood. She taught me how to navigate life with my abilities without having to hide who I was. This newfound mentorship allowed me to start living more openly, embracing aspects of normalcy that had once seemed out of reach. However, the fallout from my sister's failed venture into the entertainment industry strained our relationship further. She became more distant, and the only interactions we had were filled with her grievances or mocking remarks. Her emotional unpredictability was something even my abilities couldn't foresee. She often belittled my achievements, like getting accepted into a prestigious university, a place she had failed to secure for herself. Her frustration was palpable, and rather than sharing in my success, she chose to see it as a personal slight. Our parents, ever the consolers, continued to pamper her, only adding to the rift between us. They coddled her through her disappointments while I navigated my path largely alone, supported by Natalia's guidance. Despite the challenges, Natalia's mentorship had given me a new perspective on life, allowing me to move forward with a sense of peace and acceptance, knowing that while I may be misunderstood by my family, I was no longer alone in the world. My sister, always intelligent and driven, had faced a surprising setback when she didn't pass the entrance exam for her first-choice high school. This failure seemed to ignite a fierce determination in her. She redirected her frustration into her studies at the high school she eventually attended, excelling to the point of being the top student for 5 consecutive years. Her hard work paid off when she was accepted into a prestigious national university in one try. She boasted to me, "I got into the most challenging university, yours doesn't even compare." I responded with a casual, "Yeah, I guess so," trying to keep the peace. However, my sister took my light-hearted reply as a dismissive slight to her achievements, which sparked a heated reaction from her. My parents, fearful of her fiery temper, could only watch in dismay and later unfairly blamed me for her outbursts, calling me the troubled daughter. I bit my tongue, holding back the retort that it was not I who was the source of trouble. As I neared the end of my college years, I found myself at a crossroads about my future. My experience growing up, marked by isolation and misunderstanding due to my unique empathetic abilities, made me skeptical about my prospects in a traditional job setting. Sensing negative emotions was second nature to me, however, these often left me feeling overwhelmed and wary of forming close interpersonal relationships. Conflicted about my ability to thrive in a corporate environment, I sought advice from my mentor, Natalia, who had once navigated similar challenges. She shared that she had chosen a path that allowed her to use her abilities constructively without being overwhelmed by the emotional baggage of others. She had worked as a fortune teller and counselor, roles that let her help people while maintaining a safe emotional distance. Inspired by her journey, she suggested, maybe you should consider something similar. Working freelance could allow you to leverage your sensitivity to assist others without the constant strain of navigating complex office dynamics. This advice opened a new perspective for me. It presented a way to use my empathic gifts to contribute positively to the world while protecting my well-being. The idea of freelancing, where I could manage my interactions and not be bound by the conventional employee-employer relationship, seemed like a promising path to both personal fulfillment and professional success. Having found a calling that resonated with my unique abilities, I decided to follow in the footsteps of my mentor, Natalia. She guided me on how to effectively do the job and attract clients using the internet. This setup allowed me to work comfortably from home. However, when I shared this decision with my family, their reaction was mixed with skepticism and traditional expectations. "What kind of job is it?" they questioned, quickly followed by, "At least you should handle the household chores," and concerns about how I would manage living expenses. Although I had anticipated their practical concerns, I couldn't help but feel disheartened by their lack of support. It seemed inevitable that this would only deepen the disrespect my sister had for me, which added to my sadness. As I embarked on my new career from home, the initial phase was filled with challenges. Job offers were scarce, and I had to navigate through a lot of trial and error. With Natalia's ongoing support, I slowly started to find my footing. Financially, I wasn't able to contribute to household expenses for the first year, so I dedicated myself to managing the home, which seemed to satisfy my mother and mitigate my father's displeasure somewhat. After about a year, I began earning enough to contribute financially. When I first brought money home, my father's reaction was sarcastic. "Huh, you finally got some money, didn't you?" Despite this, the expectations for my contributions to household chores remained high, unchanged by my financial contributions. My sister graduated from university 3 years later and secured a position with a foreign-affiliated company, which boasted a generous salary. She often mocked my home-based work, calling it trivial and labeling me a parasite at home. She boasted, "My pay will increase, and I'm sure I'll be making 10 times more than you. Someone like you could never make that much money." After a year and a half, she was promoted and continued to flaunt her success, yet she contributed nothing to the household chores or expenses. The bulk of household work fell to my mother and me, with my mother passing most of it on to me. I tried to discuss the fairness of household contributions with my sister, Quinn. "You need to take better care of yourself," I suggested. "Instead of spending all your money on yourself, you should contribute some to the household." Her response was dismissive and cutting. "You're a waste of space, sister. You should do all our housework. I'm saving my money for my future." This dynamic caused me to reflect on my own choices. While my parents seemed to tacitly support Quinn's perspective, dismissing my concerns as unavoidable sibling dynamics, I found comfort and fulfillment in my work, even if it was unconventional. My job provided me with a sense of stability and satisfaction that I wasn't willing to give up, even amidst the family tensions. It was clear that my path was diverging from traditional expectations, but it suited me, allowing me to use my abilities in a meaningful way while managing the complexities of my home life. When my sister abruptly announced her engagement, our family was taken completely by surprise. She revealed that she was marrying a wealthy man who earned more than $15 million per year. Her initial words were tinged with an apology for her own happiness, seemingly aware of how it might overshadow me. "Oh, I'm sorry I became happy first, sister. But isn't marriage just a pipe dream for someone like you?" she said, implying that my own prospects were dim in comparison. The following Sunday, amidst our bewildered state, she introduced us to her fiancé. He was a young man named Logan, who arrived dressed smartly in a suit and tie, exuding confidence and capability. "My name is Logan, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I've come to propose to Quinn," he said with a polite and dignified manner. My sister beamed with pride, asserting, "I told you he was wonderful, and he is, isn't he? I'll be happy with him." During the conversation, my father, overwhelmed yet curious, inquired about Logan's profession. Logan explained that he was currently training at a company owned by his father's friend, preparing to take over as the future president. My sister, tearful and evidently thrilled, elaborated that Logan's father was the company's president, and Logan was gaining experience outside the family business to better prepare for his future role. As the afternoon progressed, despite the pleasant exchanges, I sensed a deep, inexplicable darkness surrounding Logan, a shadow that seemed at odds with his polished exterior. This sense of unease was something I couldn't ignore, given my unique ability to perceive underlying emotions and threats. Feeling increasingly worried about my sister rushing into marriage after less than 5 months of dating, I broke my silence. "Listen, Quinn, you've only been dating him for a short time. Get to know him a little better before deciding to marry him," I urged, my voice filled with concern rather than judgment. But my attempt to convey caution was vague, driven by an instinctive reaction to the darkness I sensed rather than concrete evidence. Quinn reacted defensively, dismissing my concerns outright. "What exactly are you on about, sister? He is a man of great distinction and the company's future president. You're just upset because you compare your situation to my happiness. You're a pitiful person, aren't you?" Her words stung, and my parents quickly sided with her, scolding me for interfering. "Because you're a nobody, you should at least stop interfering with your sister's happiness," they admonished. Their reaction was clear. They saw Logan's wealth and prospects as a secure future for Quinn, and, by extension, a peace of mind for themselves in their old age. Caught in a whirlwind of emotions and unable to convey the ominous feelings I harbored about Logan, I felt isolated and misunderstood. My warnings, rooted in a genuine concern for Quinn's well-being, were cast aside as mere jealousy, leaving me to grapple with the frustration and helplessness of watching the engagement proceed. The tension was palpable on the day when both families met for the first time. My sister's fiancé, Logan, and his parents carried themselves with the same polished demeanor he did. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling of dark clouds looming behind their bright exteriors. Despite my reservations, the wedding day arrived too quickly, and in the flurry of excitement, I had no opportunity to share my misgivings with my overly enthused family. As we prepared to leave for the ceremony, my sister threw in a boast, unsolicited as ever. "You know the president of our company is attending today's reception. Do you have any idea how talented and promising I am? It's a great honor. But I know you, my little stay-at-home sister, can't even fathom how significant this is." Her words were sharp, intended to belittle me before we even stepped out. The ceremony itself was beautiful. My sister exchanged vows of eternal love at the hotel's grand wedding hall, her face beaming with joy. Yet, as I watched her, my heart was heavy with concern about the longevity of that happiness. The company president, a guest of honor, delivered a speech that clearly delighted my sister. Everyone seemed caught up in the celebration, but the atmosphere shifted for me during the reception. As the evening progressed, I noticed that while other tables were served with drinks and hors d'oeuvres, our table remained starkly empty. Initially, I thought it was merely a delay, but it became apparent that something was amiss as everyone else around us began their meal. The guests at my table grew increasingly uncomfortable with the oversight. Then, my sister approached me, leaning in with a smirk. She whispered harshly, "Free food is not prepared for people like you. This food is too good for you. You should just go home and eat potato chips." Just leave our wedding gift and go home." Her words, meant to humiliate, were confirmed by Logan's wide grin from across the room. Even my parents, after a moment of feigned surprise, muttered, "Well, Quinn is right." Shock gave way to anger as I stood up, confronting the blatant disrespect. "I never thought you could be this cruel," I said aloud to my parents and anyone else listening. "How could you accept such rudeness?" Their response was a bitter glance, offering no defense against my sister's cruelty. Resigned yet resolute, I declared, "I understand. I'm going home. But know this, you'll regret this." As I turned to leave, my sister scoffed, suggesting my exit was the howl of a loser. Amidst the escalating whispers of the gathered crowd, a man abruptly stood up, introducing himself as Josiah, the groom's brother. His next words sent shockwaves through the hall. "My brother and parents are scum, but the bride is even more so. I can't take it anymore. Father, your company went bankrupt half a year ago, and you're still falsely claiming to be its president. You're trying to take advantage of your daughter-in-law and her family. Logan, you can't be president anymore either, but you're still faking it, trying to leech off your wife because you're unemployed now." The hall erupted into murmurs and gasps, as the glossy veneer of the wedding cracked under the weight of Josiah's revelations. The celebration turned into a scene of disbelief, as the true colors of the groom's family were laid bare for all to see. At the wedding, as the groom's brother Josiah revealed the harsh truths about Logan and his family's financial struggles, the atmosphere turned chaotic. My sister's initial shock quickly transformed into fury. "What do you mean you cheated me? What do you mean you're unemployed?" Her face flushed a deep crimson as she bombarded Logan with questions, her emotions escalating from anger to utter despair, tears streaking down her face. The revelation blindsided my parents as well. Their cries of disbelief and outrage filled the hall, mirroring the tumult unfolding before us. Meanwhile, Logan and his parents could only stand in stunned silence, their facades crumbling under the weight of the exposed truths. Before the wedding chaos erupted, Josiah had privately shared his concerns and apologies with me, knowing my reputation for honesty and intervention. He had promised to speak out if he sensed any wrongdoing at the reception. As my sister vented her anger on Josiah, another unexpected defender stood up. This time it was the president of my sister's company, a man who commanded immediate attention with his authoritative demeanor. "Enough of this," he declared sternly. "You have no right to blame the groom. What makes you think you have the right to criticize him or his brother?" The room fell silent, all eyes on him as he continued. "I didn't attend your ceremony for your sake," he admitted, looking directly at my sister. "If you weren't Claire's sister, to whom I owe so much, I wouldn't be here." My sister's expression shifted from fury to confusion as the president turned towards me. "Claire has saved numerous companies from crises, including your own," he explained to the stunned audience. Under her mentor's guidance, she became a consultant for corporate revitalization. Without any managerial knowledge, but using her unique abilities, she has helped companies find the right path to recovery. He revealed that 8 months ago, under my advisory, my sister's company had undergone significant positive changes, making it stronger than ever. The company president expressed his deep gratitude towards me, acknowledging my contributions publicly. My sister, visibly shaken by these revelations, stammered, "Oh, Claire. I didn't know anything about that. Aren't you a stay-at-home nobody?" Her words, now hollow and embarrassed, contrasted sharply with the respect I was receiving. The president concluded, "Thanks to Claire, my business is thriving. Thanks to her, I have a good job, and now I earn more than you do." He glanced at my parents, adding, "And all the money that has been coming into your house. It wasn't Quinn's." The wedding hall erupted into a mix of murmurs and disbelief. The wedding, now overshadowed by lies and revelations, descended into further chaos. With the wedding gifts refunded and the financial contributions revealed to be misunderstood, my sister faced the harsh reality of her situation. She had relied on Logan's supposed income and even signed a lease for a condo in her name, decisions she now regretted deeply. Amidst her sobs, Logan's cold dismissal cut through. "You signed the contract on your own, didn't you? I don't know anything about it. Divorce, 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 you crook," she cried out, the day that was supposed to be the happiest of her life disintegrating into a disastrous scene of accusations and heartbreak. This catastrophic wedding was a stark reminder of the consequences of deception and the complex web of relationships and expectations that had been built on unstable foundations. Logan might have tried to justify his deceitful behavior, claiming there were reasons for his actions, but none could excuse the turmoil he caused. Not long after the disastrous wedding, my younger sister divorced him and sought alimony. Unfortunately, Logan, unemployed and with his parents financially unstable, couldn't afford much. They managed to scrape together just enough to cover the wedding expenses, but it was far from enough to handle the costs of the condo they had contracted for. The dream home intended for their life together was never lived in, and the remaining loan became a suffocating burden for my sister. The scandalous events of the wedding didn't stay within the walls of the reception hall. Word spread quickly among the company officials present, severely damaging my sister's reputation. The company president, once supportive, lost faith in her, relegating her to a lower position. She was demoted to working in a basement reference room, handling menial tasks far beneath her previous status as a rising star in the company. The humiliation was too much for her, yet she couldn't afford to leave the job because of her financial obligations. Logan and his family's plan to latch onto my sister's resources had failed miserably. They too found themselves struggling, taking whatever day jobs they could find to make ends meet. Meanwhile, Josiah, Logan's brother who had exposed the truth at the wedding, had distanced himself from his family's deceit. As for my own family, my parents quickly abandoned any pretense of support for my sister as she hit rock bottom. They then turned to me, but I had reached my limit. I told them I was done being manipulated and announced my decision to leave. "I don't want to be pushed around by you guys anymore. Goodbye." With that, I left, signed a lease on a new apartment, and started a fresh chapter in my life. I didn't abandon my sister in her time of need, though. I took her in as she struggled with her significantly reduced salary and inability to contribute financially to our parents' household. Consequently, I also stopped the financial support I had been providing to my parents, who quickly found themselves overwhelmed by their unchanged, high living standards. Meanwhile, my own career flourished. I continued to leverage my unique abilities to help companies and individuals positively, building a reputation as a reliable consultant and advisor. In an unexpected turn of events, I began dating Josiah after the wedding. His honesty at the wedding had revealed a man of integrity, and recently, he had asked me to consider a more permanent future together. As things stand, marriage seems likely, and I can't help but feel excited about the prospect of building a life with Josiah, a man whose heart is clear of any dark shadows.